In this video, we will be working on tables and columns on the web. These two elements form the basis for web forms. Tables are usually used to organize other elements such as label, text box, link, and paragraphs on the forms. In this project, we're going to develop a web table for a radio station that broadcasts its programs at different times. The broadcast table is going to make it easier for listeners to find their favorite programs and their broadcasting times. So here's the layout of the table we are going to design in this project. So what we are going to do is design a table in which days are arranged in separate columns and times within each day placed in separate table rows. The objective is to create an informative and easy to read table for radio listeners. Once we have designed the table and its contents, we will improve its appearance with some CSS style rules. So now I'm going to go into the project and open this web page, DLR evening _txt. We are going to add broadcast table at the bottom of this paragraph here in this area. So now I'm going to open it in Notepad++. Okay. Here's the paragraph. At the bottom of this paragraph, I'm going to add the table for this project. So I can add table with table tag. It's a two-sided tag. Open tag and ending tag for the table. So each table is made up of rows marked with tr element. And in this project, we have 10 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rows. So we need 10 pairs of tr tags, and within tr tags we can define table data. The size of the data is defined by the number of table rows and the number of cells within each row. So first row contains headings, and there are some cells that cover multiple columns and rows, like this one, Oprah Fest, which spans 2 rows, and we have this cell, the classic music connection, which spans 1, 2, 3, 4 columns and 4 rows. So we can define these elements with attributes like rowspan and colspan. So first, we are going to develop the first 3 rows and their contents. Later on, we will add the contents to each row. So first, we need 10 rows for this table. I'm going to go into the table tag and define table row with tr tag, starting tag and ending tag for tr. So I'm going to copy this pair 10 times. So these tr tags are going to form the rows of the table. Okay. So first, I'm going to add the class name to the table to be able to refer back to it in the CSS file, because later on I'm going to add some style rules to the table. So I'm going to define class as a schedule. There are two types of table cells. first headers, and second data cells. The header is usually placed at the top of a column or at the beginning of a row, but data cells contain contents within those columns and rows. Uh, the table header is defined by the th tag. So we want to make the first row as well as the first column of each row as header, because in this picture the first row and the first column in each row uh, is a form of header. Headers are usually displayed in bold font. The regular table data elements are usually marked with TD tag. The default browser style for data cells is to display data as unformatted text left aligned within the text, but for headers uh, the default style is bold font. So now I'm going to add the first row, which forms the heading of the table. So I'm going to go into the first row and define one, two, three, four, 5, 6, 7, 8 for time and days of the week from Monday through Sunday. So I'm going to define table head with th tag and its ending tag, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so the first element is the time. We have days of the week: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Save, and now we can go to the web page and then refresh it. So we have these elements: time, Monday, Tuesday, and through other days of the week. So now I'm going to go back to this column, and for the other rows the first column must be heading. So I'm going to go into other, second row, and then define table head. The first is the 6 p.m. I'm going to copy it into other rows: 6:30, 7, 7:30, 8, 8:30, 9, 9:30, and finally 10. So we need only 8 rows for this table. I'm going to get rid of the extra rows, save this file, and then again go back to the web page. So it is going to display the heading for each row. It starts from 6 and ends in 10 p.m. So we have our table design, but its appearance is not fully organized. So we need to define some style rules in the CSS file. So I'm going to the folder and then open DLR tables txt. Okay. Here I'm going to define some style rules for this file. So we are going to add a 10 pixel purple border in the outset style around the entire program schedule table. We also want to change the table background color to white, the font size of the table to font 75 EM, and the width to 100%. So now I'm going to add style rules to the table. So I can refer to that table by its class name. So first I'm going to define table and then its class name, which is a schedule. First I'm going to set its background to white, its border to 10 pixel, outset with RGB 153, 0 and 153. Border collapse to collapse, and font size to 0.75 EM, and its width to 100%. Save and then go to the web page, refresh. So it has not changed the style of this table. I may not have linked the CSS file to the main HTML file. So I'm going to go into the HTML file and then link my style sheet to the main HTML file by this tag link define href. Its name is DLR underline tables underline txt.css. Its type is style sheet. Save. Now go into the web page, refresh. So it has changed the style of the table. It defines some borders, defines some elements in the data table. So now I'm going to go back to the table. We have defined the table head, and now we are going to define the contents of other elements. So these are not headings, national news. So we are going to use TD tag. So for the second row, here's the first row, second row, we have defined the first element as a heading, as a header. So now I'm going to define other elements for the first row. So the regular elements are defined by TD tag, start and ending tag. It's national news. Okay. Save and then copy it for 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Save and then go back to the web page, refresh it. So it is going to add the national news to all these elements. So now I'm going to define the elements of the third row. For world news, it starts with heading 630, and I'm going to define table data with TD tag. For world news, okay, save, and then again go back to our main web page, refresh it. Okay. Um, for the fourth column, OPROFEST, for these cells, each cell spans 2 rows: OPROFEST, Radio U, and Science Week. Science Week and the Living. So now I'm going to go to the fourth row, define TD, its row span must be set to 2, and its content is Oprah Fest. Save, and then go back to make sure it works right. Go back to the Oprah Fest. I'm going to repeat this code for the other elements. For Radio U, Science Week, and the Living World. So we can go back to the main web page and then refresh the page. Okay, it is going to add these elements to the web form. So now I'm going to add the word play. And then every bank, every week. And the last item is going to be folk fest. This one spans 2 rows, so I'm going to set its row span to 2. Save, and then go to the form. Okay. So for the next row, we have 730. We have brain stew. And then Bismarck forum. Go back to the web form, refresh the page. Okay. So for this element, the classical music, it spans 4 rows and 4 columns. So after table head, I'm going to define this element, the classical music connection. And then I'm going to set its row span to 4 and its colspan to 4. Save, and then go back to the web form. Okay. Refresh the page, then go back to these elements. For this row at 8, we have these programs: old time radio, the second item is Saturday Night Jazz, but it spans 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. So I'll have to set its row span to 4. And the next element is going to be the indie connection. And again, this data spans 4 rows, but the content is going to be in the connection. So go to the web page and then refresh. Okay. So for the next row with heading 830, we have these elements. We have only one element, the inner mind, td, and then ending tag for td, the inner mind, for this row we have open mic, which spans 2 rows, row span to 2, and for the last row we have with heading 10 we have word news feed. World news feed, and then I'm going to copy it for 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 times 7. Okay, refresh the web page. We are going to get all of the contents. Now we have to organize these elements and define some style rules. So I'm going to go into the CSS file and define some style rules for the table styles. So for table dot schedule, and then for table head and table dot schedule, table data, I'm going to define its border to 1 pixel, solid gray, its padding to 5 pixel, vertical align to top, and I'm also going to define a caption for this table. With caption tag, caption ending tag for the caption of the table, all times central, and here I'm going to define style for the caption, table, its class name is schedule, its caption style, the caption site, I'm going to put it at the bottom, and then it's text align to right, so I'm going back to the web form. I'm going to refresh this web page and see how the contents are going to change. So this way we can define a web table with rows, heading, and data. So in this video we have used different elements in a table, like table head, table data, with attributes like rowspan, colspan, and how to link different elements of a web table to a CSS style sheet.